Welcome to New Hampshire Has Issues, the podcast that dares to ask, how am I supposed to keep clickety-clacketing on my emails and my everyday life when I can't stop thinking about what's going on in Minneapolis and in Portland? I had a whole other plan, friends, about what I was going to publish for an episode today, and then this weekend happened. And the previous week and the previous week, and all the stories of the ICE agents murdering people in broad daylight on video. Video that we can all see, video that is indisputable about what happened. And yet the folks who are in power in our country are claiming that that's not how it happened, that we are expected to not trust our eyes or our ears. So scrapped my whole plan for my podcast this week. Many episodes ago, Grace came on to talk about immigration and demystify some of the things around immigration. And so if you're looking for an episode as sort of a starter, that would be a place to go. But here's the thing. Nothing about what is happening in Minneapolis or now in Portland or other places, I'm sure, has anything to do with immigration. It's not about criminals. Liam Ramos, 5 years old, in a bunny hat and a Spider-Man backpack, not a criminal. Has nothing to do with doing things, quote unquote, the right way. Because Liam Ramos, 5 years old, his family was asylum seekers. It was a legal status. That was a process they were going through that is a legal process. This terrorizing of people, this murdering of individuals in broad daylight, this is a campaign of terror that is happening in Minneapolis. So instead of me rehashing the stories you've probably seen on social media, I talked to a lifelong friend of Molly's, who is a former Granite Stater, graduate of Conval High, who now lives in Minneapolis. He's lived there for about 7 years. His name is Al, and we talked just moments ago. It is Monday, January 26th. It's 10 o'clock at night as I'm talking to you right now. We talked for a bit, and he just shared some stories. And so I'm just going to play those stories for you so that you have a sense of what's happening in real time from a real person and a former Granite Stater in Minneapolis. Before I jump over to him, here's what I want to share with you about New Hampshire. There are elected officials in New Hampshire who are justifying the murder of Alex Preddy because he had a gun with him, because he was lawfully carrying a gun. He didn't have it in his hand. He never had it in his hand. He never threatened any ICE agent. But we have New Hampshire elected officials who are saying, essentially, that he deserved it. Our governor, as far as I am aware, and I feel like I've really gone looking, has been absolutely silent on what is happening. It is the responsibility of all of us to know what the people in power are saying and doing. And that is true at the federal government, when they are saying to us that one thing is true, when the opposite is actually the case, when we have the video evidence to show us otherwise. And it is important at the state level, when we have elected officials who are pointing the blame at victims, or when they are saying nothing at all. With that, I point you to the show notes, which will have some places that if you're looking to donate or looking to get involved, they would be a great place to start. And I pass you over to Al in Minneapolis. Thank you for listening. I would love to just what's going on there, Alex? You live right there. What's happening?
Yeah, so I mean what's tough is I don't know what people are seeing outside of the Twin Cities. But this is really, it's you could call it an occupation, you could call it a siege. I mean, it's daily stories of not just abductions, but people being dragged out of their cars and beaten up. And this is, this is nothing to do with anyone's real legal status or anything. I mean, so I'm guessing maybe outside of the cities, okay, you've heard of the people who've been murdered. You've all seen that. I don't know if you've seen that guy who was dragged out of his house in his underwear when it was sub-zero temperatures. And They wouldn't let him put on any clothes to go outside. It turns out he was a U.S. citizen, and I personally don't think that makes his life any more or less valuable than another. But still, I mean, for those who think that this is somehow about getting illegals out of the country, it's nothing to do with that. I mean, there's a guy who was on his porch filming whether it was ICE or CBP agents, and he was shouting something at them. They didn't like what he was shouting, so they came onto his property and tackled him on his own porch. He got it all on video. And these are some of the things that make it that I'm guessing people can see because they're posted to social media, and I don't know how if it gets out to a wider audience. But I mean, just today, a friend of mine talked about her neighbor who was on his way to the supermarket down the street and was suddenly surrounded by a bunch of agents who said something to the effect of "Get out of here, or we'll kill you," like we did to Alex and Renee. And she shared that the week before, someone had come around, and to her, she was apparently recording from her car, and they came over and told her, took her photo and said, "Congratulations, you're on a terrorist database now." Yeah, I mean, it's these are things are happening all the time, and we keep seeing reports that it happened a few blocks this way and a few blocks that way, and so that's what's going on. I can tell you that when it really hit home for me was when I was heading into work one morning, and I went up to the bus stop at about 7:30 a.m. and a bunch of teachers were outside at the bus stop waiting with high-vis vests and whistles, waiting to accompany their students to the school in the hopes that maybe they'd be able to offer some level of protection by whistling, by bearing witness with their phone. Of course, this was only days after Renee Good had been murdered. So each one of these elementary school teachers knew that they were putting their life on the line just by welcoming their students. And then, and I suppose people have all probably seen the 5-year-old kid who was
Liam Ramos
abducted and used as bait. That is, that's a big story, I think, because people got photos of it. This is happening all over the place. And people are organizing a coat drive because there's an entire section within the federal building for U.S. citizen detainees. They're not supposed to be detaining U.S. citizens, but they do anyway. And when they release them in sub-zero temperatures, they confiscate their coats and their boots and things, and they put them outside. And so volunteers are there to gather them up, and they've got coats that people have donated to give them, and then give them a ride home. So that's a little bit of what's happening. I feel like I'm barely scratching the surface. Just last week, I think it was, although it could have been, who knows? Time seems to be passing at a weird rate around here. There were a couple of agents in our neighborhood, and people started following them in their cars honking, and they just kind of stopped. They rammed one of the cars, boxed the other one in, smashed the windows, dragged the people out, and beat them up, and then took them away to the federal building, the Whipple building, and I guess I think they were eventually released. But I mean, and the thing is, like, you could, some people will try to argue like, well, that's fair, that I'll just let them get on with their jobs. I would say it is not illegal to follow them and honk. I mean, they're trying to alert the neighbors. It's the kind of the casual barbarity of it all. I think you were going to ask something like, how do we get through the days here?
How do you get through the day? How do you get through
tough.
the day?
It's tough because you wake up in the morning knowing that there are people out there who want to do us harm, and there are, and that my neighbors are being brutally beaten and in some cases killed, for exercising their constitutional rights. So there was really no other way of putting it. And it's tough. Like, it really is a campaign of terror against the populace. And they, but I will say, like, I guess the best answer to that is community. And so many communities here have come together to try to offer support, and mutual aid groups and things like that. And there are therapists and faith leaders all across the cities who are offering free services. There's someone, I think, in my neighborhood who does a nightly kind of interfaith Zoom healing space for people. For me, I find just knowing that there are actually a lot of people out there who are standing together, that goes a long way. The day that Alex Preddy was murdered, we everyone, the word went out across the city that at 7 p.m. everyone was going to go to the nearest street corner and hold a candle. And I went out with a candle in my hand. Again, this is in, negative, what was -6, something. I lost feeling in my toes. I had to turn around after a while, but I went and I stood there, and I think over 100 people showed up. And this is a small neighborhood. So that is a big part of it, but it's tough. I mean, I work at a theater, and we have a protocol now for what happens if they show up in the lobbies. And I, it's, I think one of the hardest parts too is, and I should know better than this, but occasionally I'll go on social media and I see, oh, look how many people are cheering this on. They don't think that they're going to be next. And I think what really is tough about that is there are a lot of people out there who I know are better than this somewhere deep down. And I try to, hold a lot of empathy for people who have been, led into believing. I don't know who coined the phrase "looking for change in the wrong places." The way that people have really stuck together and said, "We're not going to let this break us. We are going to stick together." I'd never seen a sense of community like that, and I've told a bunch of people here, like, I've been here now for 7 years, and there are a lot of things that I miss about New Hampshire. I'm from a small town in near Mount Monadnock, and I grew up, in the mountains and skiing, and I miss a lot of that stuff. But watching the way people have stood together here, I'm like, I feel very Minnesotan and very happy to be a new Minnesotan. Mm-hmm. So that's been a surprise, very pleasant surprise. And I lived for a long time in Prague, and I have a lot of friends who remember the old communist era and who are writing to me, reaching out to me saying, "This looks very familiar." Getting your windows smashed in, dragged out of your car, being stopped and detained for no real reason other than they don't like you. The casual cruelty and the state officials lying and blaming the victims. People who really remember this stuff. This is not unique. Unfortunately, it's an echo of some of the worst chapters in human history. And I don't, I think people I don't know if that's getting through to people, because this and stop me if you've heard this before, but this has nothing to do with immigration or this whole nonsense about the fraud everyone's going at. It's so ridiculous. But and this is going to come for everyone if it doesn't get stopped. So, but I guess another thing that surprised me is how well people have really kind of weathered this, because the level of brutality, just the violence directed against the people, and we have not, and they are hoping for someone to hit back and start, and that's what, and no one's done that, and that level of restraint is just unbelievable. And I don't know. I saw, there was, I don't know if maybe you saw in the middle of that march in the cold, people set up a sound system and were having a dance party in costumes, and that is
I didn't see that. No.
That is, I've been in Minnesota long enough to not be surprised by that, but I'm like, that does kind of capture the spirit a little bit. So anyway, I do want to make the point, though, that it's far worse than you're seeing. It is constant. It's every day. It's I guess people. So on the one hand, people are coming together and really supporting each other. On the other hand, every large vehicle with dark windows suddenly becomes suspicious, and sometimes that's just your neighbor's car that you never noticed before. There's a lot of strong community here, and the people who are pushing back against this are just showing. I'm surrounded by incredibly courageous people here, and that is important to get out. This is people who are under an incredible amount of strain and terror, being terrorized, but who are kind of determined not to let it break them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm just I feel incredibly honored to be among these folks. My friends I mentioned earlier from the Czech Republic, back when it was Czechoslovakia, I mean, they were out marching in the streets and also facing police with batons, and they didn't back down, and things changed. So you can compare this to communism, fascism, whatever you want. Tyranny follows any path to power that it can. I mean, eventually it's going to come for everybody, unless you stand up now, I always paraphrase that old chestnut, first they came for the illegals, then they came for the TPS refugees, then they came for the asylum seekers, then they came for the leftist agitators. So if you're not speaking up, you know how it goes.
There's another variation of that, which is it's a short poem, and we're already halfway through.
Oh yeah, good. I like that. I mean, I don't like it, but I like it.
Right, a weird thing to like, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Al, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, no problem. It's been nice chatting.
nice, right.
It is actually. It's nice to get it out. It's nice to tell someone outside, what's going on.
Yeah.